Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Cindy, if we could get a roll call, please.
Councilmember Dennehy, absent. Councilmember Gonzalez, absent. Councilmember Jaquez, absent. Councilmember Meisner, absent. Councilmember Reed, absent. Councilmember B. Smith, absent. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick,
I'm here.
and Mayor Smith.
Here.
Thank you, Cindy. So we have a couple of updates tonight, Brian, I understand, and if you'd like to have staff discuss those with us, that would be great. Also, I do have a question. Are we going to have any discussion about the ordinance that we received about horseback riding?
Yes, we will after the department updates. We can start. I believe we have Lisa Stutz with the museum scheduled to go first. Lisa?
Great, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Mayor, and the rest of the City Council. I just wanted to give you a brief update on the museum. 2 weeks ago, we began scheduling patrons to come in to use our reading room to do research for 1-hour appointments. A few of our regular patrons have taken advantage of this, and they really appreciate it. Starting today, we have opened our galleries for scheduled non-guided tours for visitors wanting to see our exhibits. We just opened our new fashion exhibit in our AMIC gallery. We are limiting the number of people coming in to view the galleries to family groups of 5 people or less. So we won't have more than 10 people in the building at any given time. We are also allowing some time in between each scheduled appointment and tour to give staff enough time to clean and sanitize any hard surfaces that may have been touched by patrons and or visitors. We have removed many of the tables and chairs in our reading room, along with most of our hands-on interactives in our galleries. We've placed stickers and tape on the floor in our galleries and public areas to encourage physical distancing, and placed bottles of hand sanitizer throughout the building. In addition to the things that we've done inside the facility, we have taken steps to try to step up our social media presence with our Facebook posts, blogs, and posting educational videos on our YouTube channel and putting them on channel 191. We also plan on developing more of these, developing a virtual historic bike tour and a virtual hike with a paleontologist. In the near future, we hope to get those up as soon as possible. We even uploaded 7 of our virtual displays on the museum's website. 4 of these are not currently up in our galleries. They are past exhibits. Staff is also working on a couple of collections and archival projects to make them more accessible to the public, transcribing more oral history interviews, inventorying collections, and cataloging and rehousing the Daily Record collection and the South Canyon records. One of the projects we are looking at a potential grant for is the digitization of a set of 32 bound volumes of the Canyon City Daily Record newspaper that date from 1907 to 1921. We are the only repository that has this collection of newspapers in the entire state, and they have never been microfilmed. Since it's such a rare and very important resource for scholars and researchers, we are hoping to be eligible for a grant through the Institute of Museum and Library Services to get this collection digitized and accessible to the public. I'm working with Brandy, the city grant administrator, on this project. It's going to be a long process for this grant. I think it's in 3 different stage application process. So we have to pass one to move on to the next phase. The other grant that we applied for and was just awarded is the State Historic Fund grant, which is the focus of the memo and the attachments that I sent out. This grant funding will go toward phase 3 of the rehabilitation of the Anson Rudd Stone House. Phase 1 of the project began back in 2016, which was the repair of the roof, the capping of the chimneys, and the bat mitigation. Phase 2 was the development of the construction documents that lays out the rehabilitation for the rest of the exterior of the house, which includes plans for the drainage improvements, the porch repair, windows, and repairs of the masonry. The final construction documents of phase 2 was completed at the beginning of this year. Both phase 1 and phase 2 were funded by the state historic through state historic fund grants. For phase 3, the grant funds will go towards the improving the drainage around the house, which will include the installation of a French drain around the perimeter of the house that drains into a dry well system off to the side, and the repair of the front porch. It's important that we tackle these issues first to prevent more moisture from getting into the basement of the house, and for safety reasons with the extensive dry rot of the front porch. We decided to divide up the exterior rehabilitation projects into separate phases instead of trying to complete all of them at once because of the amount of time within the grant parameters and the cost of labor to finish all the projects was going to be probably more than what the maximum that we could ask for the State Historic Fund, especially for the masonry work that's needed. So this will be a masonry work, and the windows will be part of another phase. So for this phase, phase 3, the total project cost is $48,227. Of that, $35,000 will be covered by the State Historic Fund. The matching fund or cash match for the grant is $13,227, which is less than what what we had initially budgeted for this year, and will come from likely the museum donation fund. The ultimate goal for the rehabilitation of this house is so we can open it for regular tours and to interpret the early history of the community and the founding father of the city, Anson Rudd. But we first need to make it safe for people to tour. We should be getting the contract for the State Historic Fund grant in the next month, I hope. I sent out the initial paperwork for the grant last week. Once we receive the contract, I will make sure that gets on the City Council's consent agenda. But until then, we are trying to adapt to our new operations and work towards opening up to full capacity in the future. Do any of you have any questions regarding the rehabilitation project or operations?
I have no questions.
I just want to say thank you, Lisa. It sounds like you guys have really put in a lot of extra effort to go virtual and be really creative during the safer at home times. And it's pretty cool what you're doing. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. The next department update is from Suzanne Lasha with the library.
Hello. I just want to say that as of right now, as of yesterday, Governor Polis has mandated that libraries can possibly open June 1, which I'm a little upset about that, but there's not anything we can do. We're in our 3rd week of curbside. Our patrons love it. There's some that just can't understand why that's what we're doing. But once we talk to them, then they understand. Our databases and our ebooks are being heavily used right now, which is good because maybe once we are open, people will continue to use these. We are doing virtual story times. Adam right now did one this week with the Blossom Queen, and that went really well. We are going to continue to do them with the Blossom Queen in her court for the next couple of months just to see how that goes. We will probably continue our curbside service even after we are open. When we do open, I have limited the number of people to 10. We have a huge building. We have a 3-story building that is, it's hard to keep an eye on everybody. So what libraries have been instructed to do is you have to sanitize after people touch whatever surfaces they are at. So my staff will have to keep an eye, as well as myself, on everybody that comes in when we first open. Right now, we are going to do a virtual summer reading program. We are hoping that later in July, we might be able to have some outdoor programs out in the plaza or Cara Fisher Square. We have applied for a grant. Brandy did through the Family Dollar stores, and it's a literacy grant. We won't know till September, but I'm hoping we do get the money. We could possibly use that for some new computers up in the youth department, and this would be for computers for the kids to use. We are also supposed to be getting money from the CARES Act. The state of Colorado got a little over $500,000, and that is going to be divided mainly between public libraries. So hopefully we'll be getting some of that, and also we'll be able to use that towards hardware, computer, server, whatever it is where we need the most, which right now it's both. I do have a draft for a reopen plan. I don't know if any of you have looked through it, but this is what we will do when we do reopen. We are hoping that we do get to open in June. There's most of the staff we're fairly disheartened because this isn't what we do, and we love to meet our patrons. We love to talk with our patrons. So many of them have called and just said, can we talk? Can we sit and talk for a few minutes? I want to know how you're doing. And it's been, that part's been just great. We are doing notaries, but we are doing them out in the plaza or Cara Fisher Square at a picnic table. We are not letting anybody in right now. We are not taking appointments or anything. We just feel that at this point in time, since the governor has mandated libraries can't be open, we're not going to jeopardize that. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't.
Suzanne, thank you for all that the library's been doing. I know everyone's was super excited to get back to curbside pickup again.
Yes.
Do you think that's something that you'll permanently offer or just during the COVID?
We will definitely offer that after we are open. And so many other libraries throughout Colorado are also saying that they're going to continue offering the curbside.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a new value that we'll adopt from now on?
I believe so. You know, we have a lot of elderly people. And sometimes you watch them get out of their cars and walk up to the front. It is hard for them. And I think if we could just run those books out to them, that would help them a lot. And we have a lot of people that, you know, they use walkers too. So I think that would help them a lot. So.
That's a beautiful service that you're able to offer our community. When you say that you'll have to sanitize every single thing that gets touched by a patron,
Yes.
what's the feasibility of that? Are you going to have to follow people around where they go and sanitize?
Apparently, you should. I don't know how that's possible. And I think that's why they've put off the opening of libraries, why they keep pushing it back, because it just seems impossible to do that. But like if you have someone down in our tech center on our computers, that I think would be fairly easy to do because you can see where they've touched and then you can go over and you can spray. But when somebody's in the stacks or they're picking out books, then it's going to be a little tricky. Because you don't want to have any privacy issues with those people and watching them while they're in the stacks and what books they're looking at. You know, I think what we'll do is we do have spray sanitizer provided by the city, which has just been great because we've also been using it to clean the books as they come in. And where those people were sort of located in the library, we will go and we will spray. It doesn't last very long, it evaporates, so I think we'll be okay with that.
Okay.
That's about all we can do. And they do say that when you let a certain amount of people in, give them a time limit, which we thought 45 minutes, and then that gives us 15 minutes to go in and clean up after them. So we will try that. We will see how that works.
If there's going to be long lines, will that be adjusted according to how many people are waiting?
I think in the beginning, we're going to have to stick with 10 just so the staff can learn how this is going to work, and then we'll eventually raise that limit. We're going to continue the story times virtually through this. There's no way we can handle the amount of people that come upstairs for the story times. So that kind of alleviates, you know, tons of people coming a couple of days a week, all at the same time. It's a wait and see, and I think that's what the scariest part is. So
I think, you know, we've talked about this too, is that, you know, just in this era of COVID and reopening and variances and things changing on a, you know, daily basis, you know, some of it's just kind of rolling and going with it and, you know, being flexible and adaptable.
right.
You know, Suzanne and I, you know, we had some discussions last week, and you know, originally the opening was going to be sooner than June 1st, and you know, things continue to change on a regular basis, and we just continue to adapt with it.
Right. Right. We were scheduled to open the day after Memorial Weekend, and then it got changed. So here we are.
Well, thank you for your adaptability and flexibility and still being creative to serve our patrons. We appreciate everybody at the library. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And ditto that. Ryan, I do have a question, just a general question about, you know, how are different department heads, where it's appropriate, are they using guidance from the state? I know that we have 4 variances granted to counties right now. The state has commented back to those counties about deficiencies or things that they want to see in their plans for reopening. So how is that process working within the city?
Yeah, so you know, we are, you know, taking the guidance and doing the best that we can. You know, I joined the Department of Local Affairs. You know, they host a call twice a week, and you know, we have opportunities to ask questions there and try and get clarification. You know, I think one great example is the opening of state parks. That was announced earlier this week, but we didn't really get any guidance around municipal parks or, you know, things like that. So I was on a call today, asked that question, and you know, we're, you know, awaiting some type of response regarding that particular question. So we're continuing to adapt and trying to be as cautious and as possible and make sure that we are opening up within the guidelines.
On the opening of the parks, do I understand it correctly that the state parks are open, but it's by reservation only?
For camping, yes, yeah. So the state parks have been open throughout the pandemic, but camping was not allowed. On Monday, it was announced that I believe beginning yesterday, people could start booking through the online system at the state to reserve camp spaces at the state parks. And we do have the potential to add that type of booking reservations through our websites, but we wanted to make sure that we got the guidance and that municipal campgrounds could also open during this time and make sure that we have the right guidance as well.
Sounds wise. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Do we have any online questions at this point?
While Christy's looking, Ryan, what's the update on 9th Street construction right now?
Just started, they had 9th Street blocked off today with, through lanes being coned off right there at Highway 50. We were able to get the, manhole cover out today, or prepped today. I think the new manhole, infrastructure will go in tomorrow, and then probably a day for backfill. So, we'll continue to see those traffic patterns move and adjust as different parts of that project gets completed. And then it will start moving north on 9th Street.
Thank you. And how is our budget looking right now as far as sales tax revenue coming in? And can you talk a little bit about what kind of budget cuts we're looking at for 2020?
So we have, a lot of our capital projects are going to be on hold. Obviously, the 2A funds, which are dedicated funds, and stormwater funds are dedicated funds. Those projects are moving forward because we have those funds available. We did receive our March sales tax numbers. We do lag behind. So, March's sales tax numbers came in 4.8% above last year. We attribute that to some of that panic buying early in March. Right now, we're awaiting the April sales tax numbers. Those are due usually around the 22nd of the month after the, we've got about another 10 days or so before we start looking at those numbers and can put some early projections around how it hit April. But we do have revised budgets from all the departments, so we know what projects are on hold, and trying to be very fiscally responsible with our hirings as well, and really trying to, if we can hold off on hiring a position, we're waiting on it. But there's certainly some positions we can't hold off on in certain departments where there's only one person that does that job. We still have some of our hiring continuing.
Thank you.
And with that, I think our next order of business is perhaps a general discussion of the trail riding ordinance.
That is correct. So, after the last city council meeting, we the city attorney revised the horseback ordinance to change the presumption of automatically being closed to horses on trails to automatically being open on trails unless otherwise marked. We still have it so that horses are not allowed in the parks. That's still the presumption unless it's marked that they are allowed. And I believe that was the discussion that we had with council, and Councilman Meisner asked if we could have a couple minutes to discuss this during this meeting tonight.
When you say not allowed in parks, does that include Temple Canyon, Red Canyon as well as the Royal Gorge Park?
Yeah, it would be allowed on the trails, but not necessarily in the parks. And I don't know, Catherine, do you have a way to distinguish that between our urban parks versus the mountain parks?
So the code doesn't make that distinction. It just says any city park. So I interpret that to mean any park owned and operated by the city, regardless of whether it's in the municipal boundary or not.
But if we have a trail going through the park, how would that be interpreted?
It would be under that separate, I would interpret it under the separate trail restriction.
What about the Riverwalk? Is that considered a park?
I believe the Riverwalk is considered a trail because it connects to Tunnel Drive. So, if, consideration on Monday, if council decides to move forward with this ordinance, we would mark the trails in the Royal Gorge Park as no horseback riding allowed, and then we would move forward with forming the trail user group to have discussions about other trail systems.
When will we have the ordinance to form this trail user mixed group?
Yeah, the resolution will come forward, should be the first meeting in June. We were preparing it for this next meeting on Monday. However, we took a step back and also submitted it to BLM and CPW to see if they had any input or any suggestions regarding the formation of that group.
Okay.
If I could,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry. If I could clarify one thing. So if I think we were talking about a city park outside of city limits and the trail within that park. So the section on public trails, and I apologize, I just brought up the definition because I wanted to check, is only trails within the city. So if there's a trail in a park that's located outside the city, that section actually doesn't apply at all. So presumably, I guess it's maybe we need to define that better to determine, to make that clear as to whether or not horseback riding would be permitted on a trail that's in a park that's outside the city limits. Because those trail regulations, I mean, you'll note this is number 11, so there's 1 through 10 in there. And you may or may not want those to apply on public trails outside the city. So we'd have to take a look at that, and we could tweak that if that's a concern.
I think it's worthwhile to look at.
And the other thing that I would ask that perhaps that you could bring back to our next meeting is a kind of an implementation plan, or at least make sure we have good maps of what is allowed where and what our posting plans are. Because we've got 2 cases now. You have to post to prohibit and you have to post to allow. And so knowing those things, I think, will be informative for council.
Okay. We can do that.
Thank you, Ryan. And Catherine, appreciate you both on that.
And I think that we're at the end of our agenda and modified agenda. Catherine, I would note I owe you a response, and I'll get that to you first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, Ashley or Ryan?
Just that we are still waiting to hear on our variants being allowed. I guess they're backlogged at the state. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we'll hear back sooner than later. Some of the good news for Canyon City right now is that we only have 2 active COVID confirmed cases. And so that's definitely in our favor. And we're one of the lowest per capita in the state. So kudos to Canyon City for doing a job well done. And I'm sure that will bode well for us for the variances. We're also working on the COVID-19 Business Leader Task Force, anticipating restaurants being open to serve customers. Still, even with the variants, there'll still be limited capacity. And so we're looking at creative ways we can enhance that capacity by opening up more into the outdoors, so we can have more outdoor seating. And we're doing our best to be proactive and to make that happen for our residents and for our restaurants too, so they can serve more people at seating and be in compliance and be able to make money, so that it's worth staying open for.
On that same subject, I would note, Brian has information here also, but there are 4 counties now that have been granted a variance. The 2 new counties are Rio Blanco and Sedgwick. They applied, Sedgwick applied for their variance April 28th, Rio Blanco the 29th. Both of their variances were granted on May 8th. So that was 8 working days for the former and 7 working days for the latter, which is kind of good news because it just says, it speaks to the load that they're having to work their way through on the variance. It doesn't say anything else. I mean, there's no other, there aren't any negative implications with the state taking this long on our variance.
Yeah, and I have email, and again, I was on that Department of Local Affairs call this morning, and they're saying on average about 5 business days, which would be today. So it should be any day now that we hear.
And we will be shouting that out loud and clear as the second we find out, that's for sure.
Probably
Yeah.
us and the county. Okay, if that's all, then this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.